Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're tackling a market forecast report, looking all the way out to 2033. We're diving into the future of the global injection masterbatch market.
That's right.
Our mission, really just to cut through the data, pull out the core projections and, where this market is heading, what growth looks like across different parts of the world.
Exactly. Think of it as getting the essential story from the report without having to pore over every single table yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go through these numbers, think about what stands out to you in these projections.
We've got the figures, global sales revenue from 2021, projections for 2025 and 33, and those compound annual growth rates, the CGRs.
Right, the CGRs, they really tell the story of the pace, don't they?
They do. They show how fast different regions, different countries are expected to expand. It's a very data-driven look at the market's, anticipated trajectory.
Okay, let's start with that big picture then. What does this report forecast for the global injection masterbatch market overall?
All right. Looking at the numbers, the market generated 5,564.86 million in global sales revenue back in 2021.
Okay, 5.5 billion-ish.
Yeah. And the forecast shows it's expected to grow pretty significantly, reaching $7,113.4 million by 2025. And then get this, more than doubling its 2021 size to hit $11,623.1 million by 2033.
Wow, more than doubling in just over a decade. That's substantial growth.
It really is.
And what's the overall pace they're anticipating globally, that KGR figure?
The report forecasts a compound annual growth rate. So the average yearly growth rate over that period of 6.3% globally.
6.3%.
So while the total value is set to dramatically increase, the pace of that expansion is, a steady 6.3% per year on average. That's kind of our baseline.
Okay, so the global trend is solid expansion, but markets aren't uniform, right? Growth happens at different speeds in different places. Let's break this down by region. Where does the report take us first?
Let's head to North America. This region was valued at $1,775.19 million in 2021.
Okay.
And it's projected to reach $3,555.82 million by 2033.
Right. And how does that regional growth rate, the CAGR, compare to that global 6.3% average?
North America's projected CAGR is 6%.
6%. Okay, so very close.
Very close to the global average, yeah. It suggests growth here is expected to generally mirror the overall worldwide trend.
But is it uniform across the continent? I mean, we know the U.S. is the largest market there.
It's definitely not uniform. The United States market, yes, it's the largest within North America. $1,297.66 million in 2021.
Right.
Projected to reach $2,493.79 million by 2033. But its CAGR is slightly below the regional average at 5.7%.
Okay, 5.7% for the U.S. So where's the momentum a bit stronger within North America, according to these projections?
We'll look at Canada and Mexico. Canada's market had started smaller, $269.829 million in 2021. But it's expected to grow at a, robust 7.1% CAGR to $609.326 million.
7.1%, that's quite a bit higher.
It is. And Mexico, starting at $207.697 million in 2021, shows a 6.5% CAGR, projected to reach $452.709 million.
Okay, so both Canada and Mexico are projected to grow faster than the U.S. and the overall North American average.
Exactly. It just shows how even within one major region, the growth stories can vary quite significantly.
That's a really clear divergence within North America. Okay, let's move across the Atlantic. Let's see the picture in Europe.
Right, Europe, another major market, valued at $1,608.24 million in 2021. Forecasted to nearly double to $3,262.99 million by 2033. Its regional CAGR is 6.1%.
6.1%, so almost exactly in line with the global pace.
Pretty much spot on, yeah.
And what about the key countries there? What does the report say?
It details projections for several major economies. The United Kingdom is projected for a 7% CAGR.
7%, okay, higher than the regional average.
Yeah, Germany slightly lower at 6.5%, then France at 5.6%, Italy 5.4%, Russia 5.3%, and Spain at 5.8%.
So quite a range there. Some above the regional average, like the UK and Germany, some below, like France, Italy, Russia.
Exactly.
Were there any maybe smaller markets in Europe that the report highlighted for particularly fast growth?
Yes, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. It shows these pockets of strong momentum. Luxembourg, for example.
Luxembourg, okay.
Yeah, projected for a 7.3% CAGR. Now, it's growing from a small base, $20.9 million or so, but still, 7.3%. And the Nordic countries mentioned also stand out. Sweden at 7.4% CAGR.
Wow.
Denmark 6.9%, and Switzerland at 7.2%. These rates are all, notably higher than the KGRs for those larger economies like France, Italy, or Russia.
That difference in pace between some of the smaller, maybe more dynamic economies and some of the larger, more established ones within Europe is...
Yeah, that's
It
fascinating.
really is.
Okay, let's head east now to what is often, a fast-growing region globally, Asia-Pacific.
Right. And the Asia-Pacific region shows, well, significant momentum in this report. It was valued at $1,454.91 million in 2021.
Okay.
And is projected to more than double to $3,254.11 million by 2033.
And the crucial number, the CAGR.
Crucially, this region is forecasted to register a 7% CAGR.
7. According to this data, that's actually the highest regional CAGR among the major regions we've covered so far. North America was 6, Europe 6.1.
Right, so 7% is a strong rate, definitely above the global average. Which countries are driving that growth in APAC?
Well, China, as you'd probably expect, is a major force. Its market, already the largest regionally at $598.3 million in 2021, is projected for a 7.2% CAGR to reach 1.4.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Projected for a 7.2% CAGR to reach $1.4 billion by 2033.
7.2% for China.
Japan is projected for solid 6.1% growth. Yeah. But India really stands out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a robust CAGR projected at 7.9%. It's expected to almost triple its 2021 value of $184 million to about $476 million by 2033.
India's projected growth at nearly 8%. That's very high indeed.
Significant.
Any other fast-growing subregions or countries in APAC that caught your eye?
Yes, South Korea is projected for a strong 6.7% CAGR, and Australia at 6.4%. But the report specifically points to Southeast Asia as having the highest regional subsegment CAGR mentioned in the entire source data, a remarkable 8.9%.
Wow, 8.9% for Southeast Asia as a whole.
As a subsegment, yes. Now, it's starting from a smaller base, around $55 million in 2021.
Right, smaller base, faster percentage growth sometimes.
Exactly, but it's projected to reach $146 million by 2033. That indicates extremely rapid expansion in that cluster of countries. The report also mentions Singapore specifically at 6.6% and Taiwan at 6.9%.
Okay, so Southeast Asia with that almost 9% CAGR.
Yeah,
very rapid growth. So Asia-Pacific, driven by China's sheer scale, and then this rapid pace in India and Southeast Asia, clearly a major engine of growth for this market globally.
Absolutely. It looks like that's where a significant portion of the overall market expansion is expected.
Okay, let's shift gears and move to South America. What's the picture looking like there?
In South America, the market was $345.021 million in 2021, and it's projected to reach $639.273 million by 2033.
Okay. And its regional CAGR, how's that tracking?
The report forecasts a 5.2% CAGR for South America.
5.2%. Okay, so based on the data we've discussed, it's the lowest growth rate among the major regions we're examining so far, right?
That's right. Lowest of the major regions covered.
So a noticeably slower pace compared to other parts of the world. How does that break down by country within South America?
Well, Brazil is the largest market in the region, and it's projected for a 5.5% CAGR, so slightly above the regional average.
Okay.
Argentina shows a 5.3% CAGR. Colombia is a bit of an outlier within the region, with a relatively higher projected growth of 6.3%, closer to the global average.
Interesting. So Colombia stands out a bit there.
Yeah. Then Peru is lower at 4.6% and Chile at 5%.
And what about the rest of the countries in that region? Did the report group them?
It did. It aggregates the rest of South America, and it projects a particularly modest 3.3% CAGR for that group.
3.3%.
Yes. This segment is actually noted as having the lowest CAGR mentioned in the entire source material we're looking at.
Wow. That really highlights the varied speeds of growth, doesn't it? I mean, a segment projected for less than half the global average pace.
Okay. Let's turn our attention now to the Middle East. Right, the Middle East. The market there was valued at $261.548 million in 2021. And it's expected to reach $604.404 million by 2033. Now, this region is projected for a strong 7.5% CAGR.
7.5%. Okay, hold on. Comparing that to the others, North America 6, Europe 6.1, APAC 7, South America 5.2. Is that the highest regional CAGR globally according to this data?
That's correct. Based on the data in this report, the Middle East is projected to have the highest regional CGR globally at 7.5%.
That's a really significant finding from this report. Which countries are leading that surge?
Several countries here show really high growth potential. Egypt at 7.2% CAGR, Turkey at 7%.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia is particularly strong. It's projected to lead the region with an 8.2% CAGR.
8.2, wow.
Yeah, growing from about $98 million in 2021 to $243 million. The UAE also shows a robust 7.9% CAGR.
Nearly 8% as well.
Exactly. And Qatar is at 7.7%. Even the rest of the Middle East segment is projected for a decent 5.7% CGR. So the data clearly positions the Middle East as a significant hotspot for rapid expansion in this market.
8.2% for Saudi Arabia, 7.9% for the UAE. Those are very high rates. They must be contributing substantially to that leading regional average.
No doubt about it.
Okay, finally, let's look at Africa.
Right. Africa represents a smaller overall market size compared to the other regions we've discussed. It started at $166.946 million in 2021 and is projected to reach $306.548 million by 2033. The regional TAGR for Africa is projected at 5.8%.
5.8%. So below the global average, but, not drastically lower than North America or Europe. How does that compare to some of the key countries there?
South Africa is projected for a 6.5% CAGR, growing from about $60 million in 2021.
Okay, above the regional average for South Africa.
Yes. Nigeria, which is actually a larger market within the region, starting at around $77 million in 2021, has a slightly slower projected CAGR of 5.3%.
5.3% for Nigeria.
And the rest of Africa segment shows a 5.6% CAGR.
Okay, so we've completed our tour through the global numbers and all the regional projections. Let's try and bring it all back together and look at the overall picture these numbers paint.
Right. So the global market is definitely set for solid expansion, projected to more than double by 2033 with that overall 6.3% CAGR.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway, really, from drilling into the data is this stark difference in expected growth rates across the world.
Yeah, the growth isn't evenly distributed at all, is it?
Not even close.
Yeah.
The data points clearly to the Middle East and Asia Pacific as the fastest growing major regions.
Right.
KGRs of 7.5% and 7% respectively.
Right, leading the pack.
Then you've got Europe and North America expected to grow much closer to the global average, around that 6% mark. Africa is a bit below at 5.8%, and then South America is trailing with the slowest regional growth rate at 5.2%.
And within those regions, we saw even sharper contrast, didn't we? Specific areas really accelerating.
Absolutely. The report highlights Southeast Asia, remember, with the highest subsegment CGR at almost 9%.
Almost 9%.
And countries like Saudi Arabia, 8.2%, India, 7.9%, the UAE, 7.9%, Qatar, 7.7%, all showing particularly high individual country CGRs.
And on the flip side,
you have that rest of South America segment projected for very modest growth, just 3.3%. And countries like Peru, 4.6%, Nigeria, 5.3%, Russia, 5.3%, Italy, 5.4%, all showing slower growth rates compared to the global average.
So the synthesis here, purely based on these numbers, seems to be that the injection masterbatch market is growing substantially, yes, but the engine of that growth is clearly shifting geographically. It's accelerating fastest in the Middle East and parts of Asia.
That's what the numbers strongly suggest, definitely. The future expansion isn't some rising tide lifting all boats equally. It looks like it's concentrated in specific regions and countries projected for particularly rapid development in the coming decade.
Okay. Well, this deep dive has given us, I think, a really clear look at the numerical landscape for the future of the injection masterbatch market, based on this particular forecast anyway. We've seen the significant global growth overall, but also these critical variations in speed across regions and countries.
Understanding these differences in projected pace is it's essential for grasping the market's future shape, I think.
It really is. And that brings us to a final provocative thought for you, our listener, based on the data we've just unpacked. Considering the Middle East and Asia Pacific, particularly places like Southeast Asia, India, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE are projected as the fastest growing areas for injection masterbatch demand. What does this imply about where manufacturing and consumption of plastic products using these materials are expected to boom? What specific industries or, developments might be fueling such rapid growth in these particular parts of the world? Something to think about as you reflect on these numbers.
Okay, let's dig into this. If you just look around you, maybe your phone case, the dashboard in your car, even, food containers, plastic.
This audio was created with podcastle.ai.
Dashboard in your car, even, food containers, Plastic, it's absolutely everywhere. But it's often not just plain plastic, right? It's enhanced with master batch stuff that gives it color, maybe makes it stronger, all sorts of special properties.
Exactly.
So today we're doing a deep dive into one specific area, the Advanced Injection Masterbatch Market. We've got some great insights here from cognitive market research.
Yeah, some interesting data there.
And our goal, really just to cut through the noise, figure out what's driving this market, what challenges it's up against, and where the really exciting innovation is. Because we're seeing this huge surge in plastic use, especially in tricky sectors like electronics, automotive, packaging. So what's pushing the demand for these advanced master batches in those areas?
Well, you pretty much hit it. Things just need to do more now. The first big driver is just a fundamental demand for quality.
Quality, okay. Like consistent color.
Consistent color is a big one, yeah. Think branding, safety labels, that specific shade. It has to be the same every single time, batch after batch.
Right, non-negotiable.
Totally. And then there are properties like reliable UV protection. You don't want your car parts fading, right? Or thermal stability, super important in electronics handling heat. Advanced master batches are how you guarantee that level of performance.
Okay, so it's much more than just coloring plastic. It's about making it actually perform under stress.
Precisely. And building on that, industries increasingly need high-performance additive solutions, things like flame retardancy.
Ah, yeah, for safety.
Exactly. For electrical casings, maybe antibacterial properties for medical devices or food packaging. These aren't just nice-to-haves anymore. They're often required for safety, for regulations.
And master batches are the efficient way to get there.
Often the most cost-efficient way, yeah. To bake those properties right into the material itself rather than, complex secondary processes.
Makes sense. Meeting the rules without a complete material overhaul.
Absolutely. And the third piece is design flexibility. Aesthetics and function, they have to merge now.
How so?
Well, advanced master batches let companies blend specific colors, visual effects, and performance features. Think about complex shapes in premium packaging or medical tools or just the look and feel of a car's interior. It allows for that integration.
Fascinating. So quality, performance, needs, even design, all pushing innovation. But it's probably not all smooth sailing. What are the bumps in the road? The restraints.
Oh, yeah, definitely challenges. One major headache is just the volatility of raw material prices.
The inputs.
Yeah, the core components often come from petrochemicals. So when crude oil prices bounce around or supply chains get hit.
Like we've seen recently?
Exactly. It directly impacts manufacturing costs, makes things unpredictable. That's a big one.
Okay, what else?
Then there are the environmental regulations. Huge factor now. As everyone pushes for recyclability, tackling plastic waste. Well, conventional master batches can sometimes be tricky.
How tricky?
They might complicate recycling streams, or there are concerns about microplastics. And that obviously creates resistance, especially in economies really focused on going green.
So the push for sustainability can actually be a hurdle for some of the existing tech in this space.
Precisely. And lastly, you can't ignore the initial cost factor, especially for the really advanced stuff.
Like the nanotech you mentioned.
Yeah, nanoformulations, specialized antimicrobial agents. They offer amazing performance, but the upfront price tag is higher. That initial investment, it can be tough, especially for smaller manufacturers.
So performance demands versus cost and environmental pressures. Where's the future heading at? What are the exciting trends popping up?
This is where it gets really interesting, actually, because the trends often directly address those challenges.
Oh, good.
The biggest one, driven by sustainability. It's the massive rise of bio-based and compostable master batches.
Working with things like PLA.
Exactly. PLA, PHA, other polymers from renewable resources. Companies are creating colors and additives specifically designed to work with those materials. It fits right into that whole circular economy idea.
Okay, that's huge. What else?
We're also seeing incredible stuff happening with nano formulations. We mentioned the cost.
Yeah.
But the payoff can be enormous. Adding materials at that tiny scale, it's not just color anymore. It fundamentally enhances the plastic. You get superior strength, better thermal stability, improved barrier properties, stopping moisture or oxygen.
And crucially, without adding much weight.
Right, exactly. Without adding significant weight. Imagine lighter, stronger car parts. Big impact on fuel efficiency. That's the kind of game-changing stuff nano master batches enable.
Wow, lighter, stronger. Sounds almost like sci-fi.
Doesn't it? And finally, there's a definite move towards intelligent packaging. Smart master batches.
What does smart mean here?
It means they can actually react to external changes. Light, moisture, temperature. Think e-commerce, high-value goods. Maybe you want an indicator built into the package itself that shows freshness or tampering or authenticity. That's where this is going.
That covers a lot of ground, from basic quality needs through cost and eco-challenges to these really cutting-edge trends in biomaterials, nanotech, and smart features. It feels like for anyone tracking materials or manufacturing.
Right.
Well, this market is definitely one to watch.
It really is. It's kind of a microcosm of modern manufacturing, isn't it? That constant push for higher performance, the real-world challenge of cost, and this increasingly urgent need to build in sustainability and even intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it brings up a point, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about. Given that increasing pressure from environmental regulations and seeing how quickly these bio-based and compostable options are advancing, how fast might those sustainability drivers completely reshape the market? Could environmental needs shift from just being a restraint to becoming the primary force dictating which materials win out?
That's a really interesting thought to end on. From restraint to main driver. Okay, lots to chew on there. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.